Greetings to all our readers, whether you are longtime seekers of spiritual wisdom or newcomers on this journey. Today we invite you to explore one of the most profound and thought-provoking stories ever told, the story of Job. What does it mean to hold on to faith when everything else is stripped away? How do we find meaning in suffering that seems incomprehensible? These are questions that have resonated through the ages, and Job's journey offers us a lens to examine them. This story is more than a tale of loss and restoration. It's a testament to the resilience of faith and the boundless grace of God. As we delve into Job's trials, his conversations with friends, and his extraordinary encounter with the divine, you will discover insights that speak to the heart of what it means to trust amidst uncertainty. Prepare to be challenged, comforted, and inspired as we walk alongside Job on this remarkable journey. Let's begin. The story of Job, a figure immortalized in biblical literature, is a timeless exploration of human suffering, faith, and resilience. Known for enduring unimaginable trials, Job's journey offers profound insights into the human condition and the divine purpose behind adversity. This retelling delves into the initial chapters of Job's life, highlighting his exemplary character, his sudden downfall, and the remarkable resilience he demonstrated in the face of overwhelming loss. Job's life, as introduced in the Bible, epitomized success and virtue. Living in the land of Uz, he was described as a man blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. Job was not only spiritually devout, but also immensely prosperous. His estate included 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 pairs of oxen, and 500 donkeys, alongside a vast retinue of servants. These numbers symbolized abundance and completeness, positioning Job as the wealthiest man in the East. Beyond his material wealth, Job's family life was harmonious and blessed. He had 10 children, 7 sons and 3 daughters, who often gathered to feast and celebrate together. This familial closeness was a testament to the values Job instilled. Concerned for their spiritual well-being, Job regularly offered burnt sacrifices for each of them, saying, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Through this, he demonstrated his unwavering dedication to both God and his family. Job's life was one of balance, a man who blended material success with spiritual integrity. The description of his livestock and servants not only emphasizes his wealth, but also the responsibilities he shouldered. These weren't just possessions, they were markers of his status and influence in society, and yet, Job never let them corrupt his heart. His rituals of intercession for his children highlight his humility and his awareness of humanity's fragility before God. Each sacrifice was a reminder of the importance of maintaining a clean heart and a right standing before the Creator, not just for himself, but for his loved ones. Job's reputation extended far beyond his immediate community. His wisdom, kindness, and fair dealings earned him respect and admiration across the region. Elders sought his counsel, the poor found relief in his generosity, and the downtrodden were uplifted by his sense of justice. Job's character embodied the ideal of a righteous leader who used his wealth and influence to serve others. These qualities further deepened the tragedy of his eventual downfall, making his trials all the more poignant. Unknown to Job, a celestial dialogue was unfolding between God and Satan. God praised Job's faithfulness, asking Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth?" Satan challenged this assertion, suggesting that Job's faith was merely a result of his blessings. He insinuated that Job's devotion was conditional, rooted in his wealth and comfort rather than genuine piety. To prove Job's devotion, God permitted Satan to test him, with one condition: his life was to be spared. This interaction provides a rare glimpse into the spiritual realms, where divine purposes intersect with human lives. It also underscores the theme of trust, not just Job's trust in God, but God's trust in Job. By allowing the test, God was making a profound statement about the authenticity of faith and the resilience of a righteous heart. Job's life became a stage on which the profound question of human devotion was played out. Would he remain faithful when stripped of every comfort and blessing? The stakes of this test were monumental. Job's response would serve as a testament not only to his own character but also to the enduring power of genuine faith. It was a cosmic wager of sorts, one that highlighted the tension between divine wisdom and the limitations of human understanding. For readers, this backdrop adds an almost unbearable weight to the tragedies that followed. In a single catastrophic day, Job's world was turned upside down. The first blow came when the Sabeans raided his estate, killing his servants and stealing his oxen and donkeys. Before Job could process this calamity, another messenger arrived with the news that a fire from the sky had consumed his sheep and the shepherds. Yet another harbinger followed, reporting that Chaldean raiders had seized his camels and slain more servants. Finally, the most devastating message reached him. A powerful wind had collapsed the house where his children were feasting, killing all 10 of them. The layered progression of these tragedies paints a picture of relentless devastation. Each loss struck at a different facet of Job's life: his wealth, his workforce, and, most crushingly, his family. It was as if every pillar of his identity and security was systematically dismantled. What makes this narrative even more poignant is the immediacy of the losses. Job had no time to grieve one calamity before another struck. The rapid succession of these events emphasizes the intensity of his trial, leaving him no space to catch his breath. The image of Job, a man who once commanded respect and admiration, now stripped of all external markers of success, is deeply moving. He was brought to the very edge of human endurance. Yet, despite the enormity of his grief, Job's response was extraordinary. Tearing his clothes and shaving his head, traditional expressions of mourning, he fell to the ground in worship. He proclaimed, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." These words reflect a faith that transcends circumstance, a recognition of God's sovereignty over all aspects of life. Job's refusal to sin or blame God highlights the depth of his character and the authenticity of his devotion. Job's grief, though profound, was not without hope. His response demonstrates an unwavering belief in the divine order, even when that order seemed incomprehensible. By falling in worship rather than rebellion, Job modeled a faith that finds its strength not in understanding, but in trust. His reaction challenges readers to consider how they might respond when their own lives are upended. Having failed to undermine Job's faith through material and familial loss, Satan sought permission to afflict him physically. God allowed this but forbade Satan from taking Job's life. Job's body was soon covered in painful sores from head to toe. His condition was so severe that he sat among the ashes, scraping his sores with a shard of pottery for relief. The image of Job, once a man of great wealth and stature, reduced to such a state of misery, is heart-wrenching. The physical pain was compounded by the emotional toll of isolation. Those who once respected and admired him now recoiled in disgust. Job's affliction wasn't just a test of his body but a trial of his spirit. It stripped away not only his comforts but also his dignity, forcing him to confront his humanity in its most vulnerable form. Job's suffering serves as a mirror for readers, reflecting the vulnerability of the human condition and the fragility of worldly achievements. Moreover, the loss of community added an additional layer of anguish. The very people who once celebrated his success now distanced themselves, treating him with contempt. This social rejection deepened Job's isolation, creating a profound sense of abandonment. In this state, Job's physical and emotional pain became intertwined, illustrating how suffering often permeates every aspect of life. Job's suffering extended beyond his physical and emotional pain. It tested his relationships. His wife, overwhelmed by their shared losses, urged him to curse God and die. Her words, though harsh, were born out of her own despair. In response, Job rebuked her gently yet firmly, saying, "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" This response reveals Job's profound understanding of faith as a commitment to God's will, irrespective of personal circumstances. It highlights his ability to maintain a perspective grounded in trust, even when faced with despair. When 3 of Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to console him, their initial silence was a profound acknowledgement of his immense grief. For 7 days and nights they sat with him without speaking, a gesture of solidarity that reflected the depth of his suffering. However, as the silence broke, their attempts at comfort turned into accusations. They insisted that Job's suffering must be a punishment for hidden sins. This perspective, rooted in the belief that suffering was always a consequence of wrongdoing, added to Job's anguish. Their accusations reveal a common but flawed theological perspective: the assumption that prosperity is proof of righteousness and suffering, evidence of sin. This simplistic view not only misrepresented Job's situation, but also deepened his isolation. The friend's failure to empathize underscores the loneliness of suffering, where even well-meaning companions can become sources of pain. The dialogue between Job and his friends became a battleground of perspectives, with Job defending his integrity against their claims. This tension further highlighted the inadequacy of human wisdom in the face of divine mysteries. While his friends sought to rationalize his suffering, Job longed for a direct encounter with God, believing that only the Creator could provide true understanding. As Job grappled with his pain and the accusations of his friends, he entered a deep spiritual crisis. In his despair, he cursed the day of his birth, lamenting that he had ever been brought into existence. Yet, even in these moments of profound anguish, Job did not abandon his faith. He directed his questions and frustrations toward God, seeking answers and understanding. This period of questioning was not a rejection of God, but a plea for clarity. Job's willingness to engage with God, even amidst his suffering, highlighted the depth of his faith. He longed to understand the purpose behind his trials, demonstrating that faith is not the absence of doubt, but the persistence of trust despite doubt. His cries were both a lament and a testament to his belief that God alone held the answers. The story of Job's initial trials is a powerful reminder of the unpredictability of life and the fragility of human existence. It challenges the assumption that prosperity is a sign of divine favor and suffering a mark of divine punishment. Instead, it presents a nuanced view of faith, one that endures not because of blessings, but despite the lack of them. Job's resilience and unwavering trust in God, even as he faced unparalleled adversity, set a profound example for believers. His story invites reflection on the nature of faith, the purpose of suffering, and the transformative power of perseverance. It is a testament to the idea that true faith is refined in the furnace of affliction, emerging stronger and more genuine. In the face of life's challenges, Job's story encourages us to seek not just answers, but a deeper connection with the divine. His journey reminds us that while we may not always understand the reasons behind our trials, we can find strength and solace in trusting the one who holds all things in his hands. His story serves as a beacon of hope, illustrating that faith anchored in God can weather any storm. It is through this lens of steadfast devotion and resilience that the profound lessons of Job's life continue to resonate across centuries. After a prolonged period of anguish and a cycle of debates with his friends, Job's crisis reaches its apex. He longs for a direct confrontation with God, hoping for answers to the torment he has endured. Finally, God responds, but not in the manner Job expects. Out of a whirlwind, God's voice emerges, majestic, commanding, and profoundly humbling. God begins with a series of rhetorical questions, asking Job about the mysteries of creation. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Job 38, 4-5. Through these questions, God reveals the vast gulf between divine omniscience and human understanding. The natural world, from the placement of the stars to the behavior of animals, is shown as a testament to God's wisdom and power, realms far beyond Job's comprehension. God's speech spans multiple chapters, covering the marvels of the natural world. He describes the majestic creatures like the behemoth and leviathan, whose strength and independence highlight humanity's limitations. The behemoth, a creature of enormous power, symbolizes God's creative mastery and control over life. The leviathan, with its impenetrable scales and fierce demeanor, illustrates forces that humans cannot tame, but which are subject to God's command. By drawing attention to these wonders, God not only underscores his control over creation, but also invites Job to trust in a wisdom that orchestrates complexities far beyond human grasp. These questions do not directly address Job's suffering, but instead shift his perspective. By illustrating the intricacies of creation, God reminds Job of the grand design in which human struggles play a part, even when their purpose is obscured. It is not an explanation of Job's trials, but a call to trust in the divine order. God's discourse highlights that life, with all its pain and beauty, operates within a framework too vast for human comprehension. God's questions also serve as a mirror, reflecting Job's limited understanding of the universe and his place within it. This divine dialogue humbles Job, not by providing specific answers, but by emphasizing the awe-inspiring reality of God's infinite wisdom and power. It is a reminder that human comprehension is finite, and some mysteries remain within God's dominion alone. For Job, this revelation is transformative, replacing his demands for answers with awe and submission. Confronted with the magnitude of God's power and the limitations of his own understanding, Job's response is one of humility and repentance. He declares, "Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." Job 42, 3-6. This moment marks a profound transformation in Job. He no longer seeks explanations for his suffering, but instead submits to the wisdom of God. Job's repentance is not for sins that caused his suffering, for he was blameless, but for presuming to question God's governance. His faith, tested and refined, emerges stronger and more mature. Through his surrender, Job demonstrates that true faith does not demand comprehension of God's ways, but rests in trust and reverence. Job's response also reflects the power of encountering God personally. While his friends offered misguided explanations and shallow theology, Job's direct interaction with the Creator transcends their arguments. This intimate encounter changes not just Job's perspective on his trials, but also deepens his relationship with God. His shift from questioning God's justice to trusting his sovereignty illustrates a growth in spiritual maturity that could only be achieved through such profound trials. Job's acknowledgement of his limitations is not an admission of defeat, but a recognition of the vastness of God's wisdom. Following Job's submission, God turns his attention to Job's friends. He rebukes Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar for misrepresenting his character, saying, "You have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has." Job 42:7. Their rigid belief that suffering is always a punishment for sin is shown to be flawed, and their lack of compassion is condemned. The friends had relied on a simplistic, transactional view of divine justice, blessings for the righteous and suffering for the wicked. This theology not only failed to capture the complexity of God's governance, but also added to Job's pain by accusing him unjustly. God's rebuke underscores the danger of speaking about divine matters without understanding, especially when addressing the suffering of others. Their failure to empathize highlights the harm that can arise from applying rigid doctrines to complex human experiences. God commands the friends to offer sacrifices and seek Job's intercession. Remarkably, Job's role as a mediator reflects his restored standing with God. Despite their earlier accusations, Job prays for his friends, demonstrating a heart free of bitterness. This act of intercession underscores the themes of forgiveness and reconciliation that permeate the conclusion of his story. It is a striking testament to Job's capacity for grace, even toward those who caused him additional suffering. By accepting the role of intercessor, Job embodies the principles of mercy and compassion that God values. In the final chapter, Job's fortunes are restored, but the restoration is about far more than material wealth. God blesses Job with twice as much as he had before. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. Job is also blessed with 10 more children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. His daughters, described as the most beautiful in the land, are given inheritance alongside their brothers, a striking act of equity in the cultural context of the time. Job lives 140 more years, witnessing 4 generations of his descendants. This long life is not merely a reward, but a symbol of the enduring legacy of faith. The restoration of Job's fortunes serves as a testament to God's justice and mercy, but it also reflects the spiritual growth Job attained through his trials. His greatest blessing is not the return of his wealth, but the deeper understanding of God and the peace that comes with it. The material restoration, while significant, is paired with an emotional and spiritual renewal. Job's ability to forgive his friends, his acceptance of God's sovereignty, and his strengthened faith illustrate a transformation that goes beyond external blessings. His story concludes not with the erasure of suffering, but with the affirmation that trials can lead to profound growth and renewed purpose. Job's restoration is a reflection of God's ability to bring beauty and redemption from even the most devastating circumstances. Job's daughters receiving an inheritance further highlights the countercultural nature of God's justice in Job's story. By granting his daughters equal status with his sons, Job breaks societal norms, reflecting the expansive and inclusive vision of divine blessings. This act signifies a deeper principle. God's blessings transcend human limitations and traditions, offering a glimpse of his boundless grace. The story of Job offers a multifaceted exploration of suffering. It challenges the simplistic notion that adversity is always a consequence of sin, presenting instead a vision of suffering as a test, a refinement, and an opportunity for growth. Job's trials strip away his external securities, forcing him to confront profound questions about faith, justice, and the nature of God. Faith in Job's narrative is shown not as a shield against suffering, but as a means of enduring it. True faith does not demand explanations or guarantees, but trusts in God's wisdom, even in the face of inexplicable pain. Job's story reminds readers that faith refined by fire emerges stronger, capable of withstanding the storms of life. His experience demonstrates that suffering, while deeply painful, can serve as a crucible for developing a deeper connection with the divine. Moreover, the narrative addresses the role of silence and presence in the face of suffering. While Job's friends initially sat with him in silence, their later speeches reveal the harm that can come from speaking without understanding. This juxtaposition highlights the value of compassionate silence over misguided counsel, urging readers to approach the suffering of others with humility and empathy. True support in moments of grief often lies in presence rather than words. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar represent a legalistic and transactional view of faith. Their insistence that Job's suffering must be due to sin reflects a misunderstanding of God's character and the complexity of divine justice. Their failure to provide comfort highlights the importance of empathy and humility in addressing the suffering of others. In contrast, Elihu, the younger friend who speaks later in the narrative, offers a different perspective. While he also criticizes Job, Elihu emphasizes God's greatness and the educative purpose of suffering. His speech serves as a transition to God's direct intervention, preparing the way for the revelation of divine wisdom. Elihu's arguments, while not flawless, introduce a key theme: suffering as a means of divine instruction. He suggests that trials can reveal hidden truths and refine character, a concept that resonates with the overarching message of Job's story. Unlike the other friends, Elihu's approach is less accusatory and more focused on uplifting Job toward a greater understanding of God. His role underscores the importance of approaching suffering with both honesty and grace. Job's journey is one of resilience. He endures unimaginable loss, profound physical pain, and the alienation of his closest companions. Yet, through it all, he maintains a dialogue with God. His willingness to bring his questions, doubts, and anguish before God demonstrates that faith is not the absence of struggle, but the choice to seek God amid it. Job's ultimate restoration underscores the hope that lies at the heart of his story. While his losses are real and irreparable, the blessings he receives affirm that suffering is not the end of the story. The narrative invites readers to trust in God's capacity to bring renewal and purpose out of pain. Job's steadfastness shows that even in the darkest moments, there is room for hope and redemption. The Book of Job transcends its ancient context, speaking to universal human experiences. It addresses questions that resonate across generations. Why do the righteous suffer? Where is God in times of despair? How can faith endure when life falls apart? Job's story does not offer easy answers, but instead points to the transformative power of encountering God. Through his trials, Job moves from knowing about God to knowing God intimately. His declaration, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you," Job 42:5, encapsulates the heart of his journey. A journey from reliance on blessings to a faith rooted in the unchanging character of God. This profound narrative encourages readers to embrace faith that persists, not because of what it understands, but because of whom it trusts. Job's story reminds us that even in the darkest valleys, God is present, working to refine and restore. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the boundless grace of the Creator, offering hope and inspiration to all who walk through the trials of life. It calls believers to view suffering not as an endpoint, but as a doorway to deeper faith, greater understanding, and renewed purpose in the hands of a sovereign God. The narrative serves as a profound reminder that even the most unfathomable pain can be a canvas for God's redemptive power. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and trials of Job. We hope this exploration has sparked thought, inspired your faith, and provided comfort for your own path. The story of Job reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there is hope, redemption, and a purpose that transcends our understanding. We would love to hear your thoughts. What lessons did you take away from Job's story? Have you faced moments where faith was your anchor? Share your reflections in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation together. If you enjoyed this discussion and want to explore more profound narratives and lessons from Scripture, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Your support helps us bring more inspiring content to life. Thank you for being part of this community, and may your journey of faith be ever enriched. See you in the next episode.